Hello, YouTube faithful followers of fashion. Hope everybody is doing great out there. Hope your world is spinning beautifully on its axis. So what you're going to hear today is an interview I did with the great bass player Tim Bogert back on December 7th, 1987. I actually first met Tim back in '73 when he was working with BBA, Beck, Bogert, and Appice. And Tim was not the nicest person back then, but he mellowed with age, and I'd interview him several times over the years. And you can hear the evidence of that in this discussion from '87. Tim was one of the greatest bass players of all time. Had this amazing rock thing, but he could play jazz, and he was all over the fretboard, and he played bass like a guitar player. Wonderful bass player, sweet, sweet guy. This interview was actually for a series of interview tapes I was doing for a company called REH Publications. I was sitting down with the musicians and interviewing them, and the interviews were coming out on cassettes, and then the cassettes were being sold. And so Tim was part of a series along with, who else was in there? Viv Campbell, Vinnie Vincent, Carlos Santana, Steve Lynch, C.C. DeVille, and a few others. And Tim kindly agreed to sit down and talk with me. So this interview sort of brings us back full circle. The first interview I did with Tim back in '73 with BBA was at the Continental Hyatt House, the famous hotel on Sunset Boulevard that played host to all the visiting bands, The Who, Zeppelin, you know, all these bands who were trashing hotel rooms and throwing televisions out of hotel room windows. And this interview in '87, we were back at the Continental Hyatt House. So sit back and dig this. Tim passed away on January 13th, 2021. And this is kind of my tribute to Tim. And he's somebody you need to know about. So pull up a chair, grab a cup of coffee, and take a listen. Thanks. Peace, everybody. Bye.
Think how I could start this conversation with you. Knowing you, it's been, must be close to 15 years. Was that 73 or 74?
73 it would have been, yeah.
And the first time I met you was when you were with BB&A, and it was at the Continental Hyatt House here on Sunset Strip, and I was introduced to you by Carmine, and you were laying on a bed, and you were one of my heroes. Here in one room, I'm in a room with Carmine, and I've just talked to Jeff, and we've got along real well, and I'm thinking, Tim Bogert, easy. So I go and we sit down, and you proceed to tear me to pieces.
And now, folks, something completely different.
That's it. I mean, you were angry, and you were sarcastic, and you were bitter, and I thought it was all me. I thought, wow, am I asking this guy the wrong questions, and what's going on? And then we met some years later, and you were the sweetest guy I've ever known. And you.
Here's the public apology. I'm sorry for that. I was angry.
What could you have been angry at in a situation like that?
I was broken-hearted. I thought BBA was going to be the best thing that had ever happened, and Jeff and I just could not find a common ground to walk on. Everything we said seemed to offend one another. We keep butting heads artistically, semantically, every way possible. And no matter what one did, it was just worse than if one did nothing at all. And that frustration eventually just led me to go slightly off the deep end. That's when you entered the room.
How long had you been with them by that time when we met? Do you remember? When the first record had been out?
I honestly don't know, because a lot of that is... I have a marvelous memory. It's very short, and it only remembers very pleasant things. I don't remember ugliness very well. There are great spans, great blank spans of that period of time for me, honestly. I don't remember a lot of it.
Was the record not enjoyable?
The record was an absolute nightmare. It was... There were moments I cried, and I ride a Harley. We don't cry. No, he said in a very stern voice. It was heartbreaking.
I mean, was Jeff? I mean, was he one of your heroes?
hero isn't the right word. I admired him like the same kind of sensation if you were a football player and saw somebody like Eric Dickerson, you'd go, oh my God. But I guess the Beatles were my heroes, really, or Elvis or Ray Charles. So no, I saw him as an equal, but someone who could really, it's like holding a conversation with someone who's very bright. Think of all the wonderful things, the avenues you can go in, and
right,
all the puns you can make, and
right,
you know, the depth of the humor, and that's what I was looking forward to, and that didn't happen. None of that happened artistically. And it was like, was it something I said? And of course that very quickly turns to fuck you.
Right.
And it did.
It did. Carmine seemed to get along with him.
Carmine got along with his fame beautifully, which turned my stomach, but that's another story.
I mean, I think I could pretty much see in that room that first day that we met how Carmine dealt with it and how you dealt with it.
I couldn't deal with it, and Carmine beat his way through it. Carmine was from the street, and I wasn't at the time. I had now got a street sense, so I can deal with a lot of that, but I couldn't at the time. So I found it very difficult. And I found Carmine's way of dealing with it offensive, so that now I was really alienated completely. Disappointed on one hand that I couldn't get together with this artist who I really admired. And on the second hand, I just lost one of my best friends I've ever had. So yeah, I was, again, enter the room.
Right.
That's how you met me. I was over the top. I really was.
Do you feel then that that BBA never really hit its stride then musically?
When we were on, we were, as I remember Cream to be in my mind. I remember how Hendrix hit me. That's how we hit audiences. We hit them that hard.
Is that right?
Yeah. And it was also realizing without the artistic embrace, that couldn't be either, and I saw myself losing that opportunity, because that's a special moment in your life. I knew on stage those moments when they were happening. I went, oh my God.
You could feel it.
Yeah, well, you know. I mean, you know. It's like when you hit the ball, you know it's going to go over the fence.
Right.
You know.
How often did that happen?
1 out of 5, 1 out of 6. Something like that. We were very sporadic. When we were off, we were average, and some nights we were really bad. But when we were on, it was amazing. And the live album they did in Japan was a very average night.
That was average?
Yeah, it waffled along. The problem was there was no real band leader. No one would take direction, therefore no one could give any. There was no give and take at all. I've never seen such an organization run on fear. Fear and loathing. I didn't expect the Spanish Inquisition, you know. Anyway, that's what happened in a nutshell. It was a shame.
Wasn't there going to be a second BBA record?
Yeah. Some of the material is actually very good. I've got it on a cassette. Most of it's very self-indulgent. And it wanders, it meanders artistically. Kind of like the White Beatle album never made a statement. It just waffled on. Of course, the Beatles could do that. We couldn't. It waffles.
I mean, musically, what kinds of things would Jeff disagree about? I mean, was it?
It changed by the day. He'd come in and do something that would knock me on my can. And because of our lack of communication, Jeff is a sensitive man as well. So he would drink his scotch and I would smoke my little smoke, and by the end of the session, you know, there was no communication possible. I mean, we're in here, but we can't come out. And so he would come back at midnight or 1 a.m. or what have you and erase the tracks.
Would he really?
Yeah. There was those kind of things. There's lots of those kind of things. But again, let's not get too negative, because it's a long time ago. This is the first time I've really talked about it publicly.
Is it?
Yeah. I knocked Jeff once in the press, and I'd knocked Carmine once in the press, and when I read it, this goes back to 74 when I was really pissed off. And I read it and I thought, ooh, sour grapes, that's, ooh, oh dear. So I don't want any of this to sound like sour grapes, because it doesn't feel that way at all anymore. Excuse me.
The record did have its moments, though.
Oh, it did, yeah. It's, again, when the band played, it cooked. Lady had its moments.
Lady certainly did.
That came out of sheer frustration because the machinery kept breaking down.
Really?
We were at Terramar Studios, Chess Studios in Chicago, and they had done all the Howlin' Wolf stuff, all the old blues stuff, and we thought we would get an authentic sound there. And what we got was a pain, because really the thing would break down every 20 minutes. We'd be in the middle of a glorious take. Fellas, you'll have to stop. You know, it's kind of like, ah! And you run around off the walls and that sort of thing. And of course, everyone's demeanor kind of turns into feces. So, that's,
the band itself did a lot of the production, didn't it?
at first, until it became too much of a burden, and then we brought someone in, because by then the loose ends were all over the place.
Was that Don Nix?
Yeah.
Did he help bring that together?
He didn't help bring the band together at all. He made the album. He finished the album. But unfortunately, he turned out to be a fourth politic as opposed to a catalyst, which just diffused things even more.
In your mind, when you knew that you were going to get together with Jeff, did you see it as being sort of a contemporary Cream? Did you see it?
That's exactly what I saw.
Is it?
Yeah. Because the Cream were one of my few contemporaries I ever went, oh my God.
Did you?
Yeah.
Were those
We did a tour with them, and I stood next to Jack and Eric's amps alternately night after night and stole. Jack was just down at the school, and he's the only artist in 8 years I have gone down on a day off to see, and he blew my shorts off.
Really?
Yeah.
The Fudge actually toured with Cream?
Yeah, we split a bill through the South in '68. We were about the same size at the time, so we would headline one night, and the Cream would headline the next, and we'd headline the next, and they'd headline the next, and on it went.
Did you draw a lot musically from Jack, in terms of your style?
Yeah, I stole. Yes. Yes, I did. I did that. Yeah, it was Jack Bruce, James Jameson, who was the Motown player, and Larry Graham.
Really?
And some of, possibly, I suppose, Paul McCartney's timing. That's, what's his name, George Martin in it. So, between those four people, I guess, bass-wise, that's where it came from.
Did you ever have a chance to actually sit with Jack or Eric and
I've sat
have
with,
a play?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, that must have been...
Still know those guys. I mean, again, you know, Jack and I sat and talked for a while, and last time I saw Eric, I guess, was the Arms concert, and we sat and chatted for about 15 minutes. That was fun.
That's great.
He's doing well, isn't he?
Very.
Whew. Lovely.
Even vocally, I get some of Jack Bruce in your vocals. And even some of the arrangements vocally between you and Carmine, I got a little bit of that Clapton Jack Bruce thing. Is that accurate?
Oh, yes. The Cream was a big influence to me. Spoonful and Crossroads took my style and threw it in another direction. It just spun me right around. Went, whoa!
Did it?
I don't think anything spun me around that hard since.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I think you're trapped by your time too. You know, there's a certain age frame, and I was reaching my mid-20s at that point, so I was at the latter end of my developing as an artist. You know, for the rest of your life, you polish that.
I mean, the Fudge got into a lot of extemporaneous kinds of things and jams. I mean, was that borrowed from Cream at all, or?
Well, I was going along the same path, you see, when I heard them do on record what I heard in my head, and went, oh my God, it is possible. Look, you guys, you can do this. You can do this. Listen to this. Sit down. You know. tie you to the couch. Absorb this.
I mean, I got the impression that the fudge just sort of had sort of like, and I may be all wrong on this, but as an outsider looking at it, I got the impression that there was sort of a loose arrangement. And
there was a skeleton, yes.
There was a skeleton.
Which we went through as a repertory group, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You had acts of a play, and you know, during this scene this will happen, and go for it. And then, you know, you have this situation next, and then this one, and that one, and this one. And
right.
That's how that worked, yeah.
Right. When did you first meet Carmen? Had you known him before getting together with him in the Fudge?
Mark Stein and I had formed what became the Fudge. It was called the Pigeons. And our drummer, for one reason or another, split. And we had just worked a place, and of course you, on your night off, you go back to the place looking. And Carmine was working there with a group. I said, would you like to join our band? He said, yeah. Make a long story short.
And that was it?
Yeah. About 9 months or a year later, we got lucky.
It only took that long to get the deal?
It took 3 weeks to get the deal. It was a fluke. A similar thing that happened to Boston happened to us, 10 years earlier, where they went from nowhere to a gold record. We were working the Long Island area, being monotonously thrown out of bars everywhere, because back then you still had to play dance music like you do now. And we weren't, with all of those crazy stop-start arrangements. So we didn't work a lot. So our manager, Phil Basile, owned a nightclub called the Action House in Long Island. And we worked there regularly, because they weren't going to throw us out of that place, were they? So Phil knew Scott Muni, who had a show in New York, radio show. They had the Rate the Record contest every week. And Phil gave Scott a tape, and our tape won that week. And suddenly there was this order for a record that didn't exist. So it became bidding wars with the company, and Atlantic bid the highest, and we signed with them.
Wow. What was on the tape? Was You Keep Me Hanging On?
It wasn't Keep Me Hanging On. It was a mono demo. It's on the album in mono. It was a one-take cut. Okay, guys, do your shtick. 1, 2, 3, go. The old
great.
days. Who would have thunk it?
Whose idea was it to do all those cover tunes?
Mark Stein and I were fooling with the idea. It was basically Mark, for the most part.
So it was really your band and Mark's band then?
Mark and I started it. We were real tight in the old days when we started. We were the best of friends.
Were there a lot of other bands in Long Island at that time? That was a pretty...
Yeah, there was a, quote, Long Island sound, and we were just part of it. We were the ones that got lucky with the sound. We didn't invent it particularly. We just happened to do it well, and we're the ones that got lucky.
Who else was around then? The Rascals?
Yeah, the Rascals, the Vagrants, which is where Leslie West came from.
Mm-hmm.
The Seven of Us, which is where Billy Joel came from.
Really?
Yeah, he was playing a place called the Barge and the Eye in the Hamptons. We played it. We did bills with him.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I heard that Billy was a character in those days.
I only knew him as one of the loonies. Like, everybody was really crazy back then.
Mm-hmm.
We were just kids, no responsibility, out after high school looking to raise hell, and did.
Were you a tough guy?
No.
No?
No. Still not.
But you can give the impression of that, though.
Well, people don't mess with you then.
Right.
If you don't have to have a confrontation, then there's no problem. It's like you've never seen the Fonz hit anybody.
Right.
He doesn't have to. That's the point. That is the point, literally. I haven't had to hit anybody in 10 years. I hope I don't have to for another 10. It's all the pummeling I did the 10 before that, see? I don't want to break them anymore. I really don't. I mean, look at these things. They're cockeyed.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't hit people. They bend. You know.
For those who can't see what we're looking at, his fingers here look like wavy
Pretzels,
strands of pretzels. Yes.
You wonder how I can do that 10th spread, folks? Well, it's because my pinky goes to a right angle. It really does. I mean,
Seriously.
It kind of goes off to the left there, and, you know, it's horizontal.
Does that really have a lot to do with the style? Seriously?
It'll get me one more position, yeah. I can do different fingerings. Not that I knew that meant anything until I started working at the Musicians Institute, where I work now, and discovered what theory was. We all played by the seat of our pants in our 20s, and now it's become something that, you know, there's a lot of theory behind, and there's a whole lot of method to it now. So I've learned a lot of the method of why I used to do things, why I do the things I still do.
But back then you didn't have a clue.
I hadn't a clue in the world. It just sounded good and I liked it. You know, if the hair came up on the back of your neck, it was good, and if it didn't, it wasn't.
I mean, where did the aggression come from, though, in the style? I mean, it was a very powerful kind of a style.
East Coast, strong family. I don't know, school background, shy individual. It was a place I could be aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the alter ego thing, isn't it? That's why so many young people want to do this.
There was
a lot as a middle-aged person thinking about what I do for a living. It really is strange.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you think that it would be anything more than a fun thing or a hobby or a pastime?
Never thought it would be anything more than a fun thing, no. It was just going to be a short diversion until I made my mind up as to what I was really going to do. I'm still making that choice. And in your mid-40s, it begins to concern you, you know? Anyone got a good job out there? Okay? Got a high IQ, fairly integral, and on time most of the time. Can't spell well, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Fudge days must have been pretty magic.
Oh, it was wonderful. Yeah. Early 20s, young, dumb, full of cum, as it were. Don't print that one. That was a slip. Sorry, Mom! But yeah, you know, it was a lark. The business was a lot of fun because it wasn't real business yet. It was just hippies having a good time.
It was pretty open. I mean, they let you do whatever you wanted in the studio.
Yeah. And if that didn't work, we'll do another one. Try that today, folks, unless you're Michael Jackson.
That's right. I mean, you were making like 2 records a year with Fudge.
Oh, yeah.
At least they're dated. There's like 2 from '68.
Every 6 months you'd grind one out, sure. That's the way it used to be.
Amazing.
You know, what is normal? You know what I mean?
Was the Fudge in the studio a fairly one-take kind of band? I mean, it sounds
basically.
like most of those performances just kind of
the second take would seem to be sloppier. The third would start to get self-conscious. The fourth would be pretentious. And, you know, if we ever got to a fifth, we'd start bickering. And so it was pretty much of a first take. If we didn't get it that night, we'll do it tomorrow. That sort of thing. Let's go on to another one, guys.
Right. Was there an influence at all from the San Francisco bands?
No, the New York scene in San Francisco was split back at that time. There was not one country musically because there was no one country mentality yet. Satellites hadn't been really launched. We didn't have a whole country thing going. It was still very regional. That all broke out in the 70s.
I remember there was an interesting concert the band did at the Singers Bowl.
Oh, that was fun.
Tell us about that.
It was the night Jeff Beck fired his band with Rod Stewart and Ron Wood. It was the night I walked out of the Vanilla Fudge group. I finally had it.
You'd had it.
I'd had it. We had a problem. Several of the guys, and we don't need to mention names, had a drug problem. I wasn't one of them at the time. And as there was no longer any capability of dealing with the problem, I thought walking was the best idea, and I had just heard, or had been listening to the Truth album, Beck's Truth album, and then he came out with Beckola, and again it was kind of those, see, this is what I told you, listen to this, kind of a deal, and that's what I wanted to do. And Jeff had been listening to Carmine and I, and he wanted to play with us. So I told Carmine that night that I'm giving my notice, you want to go with? He said, yeah. So that was the first time the band was going to get together, and that's when Jeff had his tires slashed on his hot rod and hit the tree. Was in the hospital for 6 or 8 months, something like that.
Right.
Had a concussion.
Wasn't there another episode there that happened? Did Zeppelin play?
The bill was Edwin Hawkins Singers 10 years after Led Zeppelin. Or, no, not Jeff Beck and us.
Yeah. Didn't somebody throw some orange juice on somebody, or didn't?
Oh yeah, it was milk containers and yeah, because I think Alvin Lee and Jeff were having a problem at the time, a press problem, and some words were said, and some of the lads were down in the orchestra pit chucking fruit at him. They got out of hand, you know.
I heard that. Is it true that Vinny was a little intimidated to play?
Well, yeah, we had just been touring with Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and you know, Jeff Beck, and it blew his mind. It stopped him from being what he was in his attempt to try and be what they were, and he lost the essence of what he did well, and in doing so flipped out, literally flipped out, and really didn't play well anymore. And the less well he played, the longer his solos became.
Right.
Until it was time to walk, and in the middle of his solo at the Singer Bowl, I walked.
Seriously, in the middle?
Yeah, right in the middle. I walked off stage. That was it. I'll see you guys. This is a wrap. It ends now.
Wow. So Fudge toured with Hendrix?
Yeah, we opened for Jimmy. Led Zeppelin opened for us, and we opened for The Who. I mean, we opened for a lot of big bands that had really great guitar players, and it just wiped them out. I saw all the great bass players as just competition, and let's go, guys.
Really? That was your attitude?
That was my attitude, yeah. You know, it's my ball unless you can take it away from me. I still have that attitude. It gives me problems sometimes with guitar players. Excuse me.
You do. I'd imagine you'd be a very tough bass player to play with, because the style is so dynamic and so big. And
I don't know. I would have always thought myself that would make it easy. It gives you more to ride on, but some people don't find that. It's like some fellas find an intelligent woman intimidating. I suppose it's the same thing. And I like tall, bright women myself.
Right.
You know, bodacious tatas. My number is. When in Brooklyn, called Murray Halade.
Klondike 5. Yeah.
Give me a Carvel quickly.
I mean, obviously that must have been some of the problem with Jeff.
I reckon, in retrospect, at the time it never dawned on me, because the absurdity of the thought was just so far removed from my conscious, it never dawned on me at the time. It took me 2 or 3 years to sort that out, what had happened. You know, what has happened here? You know, it's almost like having been in a car wreck, and you don't really know what happened to you until you sit down a week later and think hard. And that's kind of how it hit me. It took a while to suss it out in my mind and put it straight and put it away.
So by the time we eventually met up, you dealt with it, and you were no longer that angry young man.
You mean the next time we had met?
After the second time we met.
The pipe dream
after
thing,
BBA, right?
Yeah, I was pretty good by then. I was rather nervous about what one's career was by that point. But yeah, all that bitterness had gone. I was just into now becoming a professional musician at that point, because up until that point I had been a pop star, which you can't be. I didn't know that. This is a temporary occupation. It isn't a vocation. People just don't see it that way.
Yeah.
You know, when they said, "What do you do for a living?" and I used to think they were crazy. Now I know they were right. I was just blinded by it all. Silly me! Well, there it is.
So that obviously did have effect on your later career. Think about the pop star thing. I mean,
Oh, sure, yeah. I didn't ever want to be one of them again. So I'm sure I've self-destructed 2 or 3 situations that might have become that again. Yeah. It's kind of like, they give you something you've had a bad reaction with. You don't want to take it anymore. But it's going to do you good. But I don't want it. The side effects are really lousy.
Right.
No, but it'll do you good, and that's okay. I'll suffer with the disease as it is.
Was it a little hard then, maybe living down your past in terms of playing
I'm
with
still
the
trying
band?
to.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. All you have to do is shit once in front of something on a national scale, and that's what they'll show on the reruns forever. Yep. Yeah, a lot of people are still intimidated by what or who I used to be. Because you get typecast. Which is okay, because that gets me as much work as it precludes. So I guess in the long run it balances out. Some years you don't work because of it, and other years you do a lot of work because of it.
Right.
So you just take what you get.
Right.
So be it.
What was your idea behind Pipe Dream? I mean, what were you trying to say?
I was trying to get back out and kick a little butt. Unfortunately, the record company went under 3 weeks after the album came out. And again, another 1.5 years of your life down the tubes. And it takes a lot of resignation to keep doing that year after year after year. And I had, at that time, been on my 6th or 7th year of trying and thought, nah, I'll go work for people for a while. So I did that for a couple of years. Made a solo album, which didn't do badly.
What was that
A
called?
couple of years later. Progressions. Unfortunately, again, the record company saw it as a tax shelter. So when the promotion time came from push to shove, because we got it on medium rotation, they were very surprised it went as high as it did. They just thought I was one of those has-beens. They could throw $100,000 as a write-off, and we actually got lots of airplay because I went and worked the album. I got on the phone. I did all those things you're supposed to. They never thought I'd do that. Ira hit the guy in New York when he found out he wasn't going to get any more money.
Seriously?
We were right at the point of really breaking a possible single. We were on medium rotation in 7 or 8 markets simultaneously, and that's the figures as I understand them at the time is what you need to get the next check.
Right.
Just look, I hear voices. Have to check it. So again, it's the luck of the draw. I mean, in the old days, I was so lucky and had no idea the kind of luck I had. I mean, everything I touched went gold. Everything. I just thought, well, this is the way it's supposed to be. Okay. What a twit. Gosh.
So Pipe Dream never turned into what you...
It was never able... It never got any press or promotion or anything. It came out, and again, 3 weeks later, the record company went down. ABC went under. I think MCA bought them right at the time.
Right.
90X were dropped forthwith, and we were one of them.
Right.
So that's, again, it's just the luck of the draw.
Who was in
can
that
you
band
do?
with you? Excuse me, Tim.
Ben Schultz, Jan Uvina, who has gone on to play
Right.
with Yngwie, and Willie Daffron. I don't know what Willie's doing at the moment. I've seen Ben every now and then. He comes up. I have a jam session on Monday nights in the Valley. And Benny came down last week and played. That was fun.
And the solo record, didn't Edward play on one of those cuts?
Yes, he did.
How did
A whole
you
bunch of people came in and played. It was very nice.
really? How did you first meet Edward?
He called me up from a hotel room on tour and said, "Hello, are you Tim Bogert?" I said, "Yes, I am. Who's this?" We got to chatting. We got a lot in common. He also has a Harley. Good lad. It's green, but it's okay.
Was he someone who you'd been aware of? I mean, who you listened to?
Yeah, it was right around the Pipe Dream time. I remember Ben coming in, and Ben is quite a guitar snob because he's a good player, and good players tend not to listen to anything. You know, it's that whole thing. You know, they're not cool enough or whatever. And Ben came in raving and said, "Jesus, listen to this guy!" You know. Oh, really? So that's when I became aware of him then.
And you run into Ed.
Oh, we bounced into each other. I ran into him a month ago at the Rock Store. It's a place where motorcyclists hang on a weekend. It's a converging place up on Mulholland. It just happens to be at a crossroads where people riding, you know, from different directions will meet up, have a beer, whatever.
Right.
You know, and carry on.
Right. Right.
So that's the last time I guess I saw him. It was about a month and a half ago.
And you jammed with Ed at the NAMM show?
Yeah, he and Steve Stevens and oh my God, I'm blank. Chet McCracken on drums and myself. That was fun.
Playing?
Oh, Superstition of
Right.
all things.
Right. Yeah.
I think that was Kramer's idea. I used to work for Kramer, and Ed works for Kramer.
Right.
And I still am friends with Dennis Berardi, who heads up Kramer.
Right.
So at the shows, it's all kind of a very high school reunion atmosphere, really, isn't it? You know. And you tend to hang in cliques, and I just happened to be again at the right place at the right time. It's that timing thing. And they said, "Would you play?" And I said, "Sure, I would." It just happened to go well, so now we play.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, I think Ed's one of those kinds of people where he doesn't do that a lot, and so for him to play with you or to
well, he
play
and I are comfortable as people. He again, hits me as one of those people who seems to be very sensitive yet very powerful at what he does, and I was no threat to him. I can remember when I was in his position, people could be very threatening to me. So that when you found someone who wasn't a wimp, yet not threatening, you know, it was kind of like, "Hey, how you doing?" "Yeah, come on in," you know.
Right, right. You talk about Kramer. It's hard for me to really see you playing anything but Fenders. It just seems that your style.
Well, I still play my Fender, the same one I've always had, and I also play a 6-string now that Mike Tobias has made for me. You know, still trying to keep just that one step ahead if I can. I can still run pretty good for an old man.
I'm sure. What's the Fender that you still play?
It's the same one I've had for all those years. The one Fender gave me at the Hollywood Bowl in '68.
Seriously? Same one?
Yeah.
The Telly?
The Telly. The Telly with the precision pickup in it. Yep.
Fender just gave it to you at the Hollywood Bowl?
Well, it was a promotion and endorsement thing. It was my first ever endorsement, anything. You know, up until that point, I had never won anything, even not a Cracker Jacks prize. I thought, my God! So I still have that bass. That's the one I still play when I play my 4-string.
So that's the one that we see in the back of the BBA record?
Yeah.
That's the one.
Still got that old girl. I've replaced a bunch of parts that I've either broken or worn out, but it still lives and breathes.
What was it that attracted you to Kramer?
I liked their metal neck idea at the time, and I liked the fact because I had small hands, that was the first medium scale instrument I had ever played that really worked for me. And I have since gone back to long scale just because it seems to be the more traditional thing to do, but at the time I enjoyed it. I was into playing faster than light. Now in my 40s I just don't care to go that fast anymore. There's no need for it for the most part. Some nights I still get rambunctious, but not just as often or as violent for the most part. I'm mellowing, oh my God. Who would have thunk it? Mom, it's working. Your baby's sane now.
Do you think the change of style has come from working at GIT and the Musicians Institute?
Yeah, you're always affected by what you are surrounded by, yeah. Whatever I'm with tends to push me in certain directions. Sure.
What kinds of things do you teach at the school?
Performance. I teach a master class they call rock bass, and I am your basic beginning vocal instructor there.
Really?
They also have a vocal school, but I don't teach in it. I teach the guitar players and the rest of those people who you see an ad where it says guitar player wanted must sing. Well, I can get you through that. Because style with singing is a basic technique anybody can learn. You know, style is another thing, but the technique itself is very simple to learn. There's nothing to it. And if you're already an artist, you know, you already got one foot in the door. So that's one of the things I do.
I bet you could never teach me.
Sure, I could.
I'm helpless.
I've taught a guy that was almost tone deaf to hit pitch. So it's only one guy I've actually had to say, no, you are tone deaf, and I'm sorry. I didn't do it to you and can't do this either. So.
What kinds of things would you teach in a rock bass class?
We start with some of the rock history. In other words, the players of note from the 60s through the 80s.
Some of those people you've been mentioning earlier?
Yes, some of the people who were my influences right up to Billy Sheehan. And because in the 60s I kind of came up with that raking or tapping technique that Billy has made real popular now, it's a shoe-in. So because I've got the 20-year-old rep as well as I'm the inventor of a style that happens to be popular right now, it's kind of like I can cover that gamut, and it works for them.
Right.
So again, timing, I happened to be at the right place at the right time. So they pay me this exorbitant fee to have an absolutely wonderful time. I like that job.
You do? You like to teach?
I really do, yeah.
Even if they didn't pay you an exorbitant fee?
No. No.
You can sense your influence on contemporary bass players then. I mean, people like Billy, he openly admits to things like that.
I don't sense it so much as that people come up and tell me things. No, I don't see it so much. I don't have a sense of importance somehow. I wish I did.
You don't have a sense of importance?
No. If anything, it works the reverse somehow.
Would you ever go back and put on a fudge record or
Oh, I haven't for years.
You
no.
haven't? What do you think you'd feel like if you did?
I don't know. Not sure I want to open that door.
Yeah.
No, I haven't listened to any of my old records except for if I wanted to get the words off of something I used to do for my club act. And occasionally I'll go back and dig through something. I might have a yen to do something.
Right.
Because there's a couple of the old things that I do in my routine just because people sort of demand it of you.
Right.
That's what made you what you are, so you might well do them.
Shotgun.
So, yeah, that sort of stuff. Keep Me Hanging On and Lady and Brother Bill from Cactus. That sort of thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. How I forgot about Cactus.
Oh, that's okay. You just ask me what you want to.
That to me, I think the first Cactus record had as much energy as anything you've ever done.
That's probably one of my better records.
That was...
Yeah. That was also one of the nicer periods as well.
Was it?
Yeah, everybody was real friends, and it was a real positive environment. It was a real team.
Was it?
I tend to work good in a team environment. I like the football mentality, Win the game at all costs, and it doesn't matter who's carrying the ball as long as you win the game. But again, a lot of people don't feel that way. So.
It was such a good band.
I enjoyed it.
So what period was that? What was
70
that?
through 73.
So that was after Fudge and
before BBA.
Before BBA.
Yeah. I had a good 8 or 9 year run at it. It was very nice. For pro sports, that's a pretty long career.
Absolutely.
Yes. If you look at it in those terms.
So you do look back at Cactus and
I look
smile.
back fondly, yeah. Very much so. I look back on most of it now pretty much and smile. I don't have any bitterness.
What happened to Cactus? They seem to lose that hunger somewhere.
We got back together with Jeff and started to fool around, and that's what the demise of Cactus was.
Was it?
Yeah. It was just moving on to something I thought would be bigger and better. Silly me! Oh yes, well, live and learn.
I mean, the live stuff in the Isle of Wight.
It was a fun band. We traveled all over with that group. Had a great old time.
That was great.
Yeah.
Such a good band. Moving back to present, have you done any recording since the Progressions record?
Not really. No. No, kind of just stopped wanting to for a while.
Did you?
Yeah. Just literally stopped wanting to have to sacrifice that hard, work that hard for nothing. And the club scene started this ticketing scam where you have to pay a certain amount of money to work in a club, and I thought better of it. So I just stopped.
So currently you're teaching?
Mm-hmm. And I play around a little bit just for grins.
With what kinds of people?
Just friends. Anybody who happens to be available that feels like playing some blues or rock and roll. I just do these little gigs when they ever come up. If I could find a good manager who'd like to hustle hard, I would probably take another shot at it.
You would?
That's my next thing. I'm beginning to get the bug again. You know, it kind of comes and goes like streetcars. It's here sometimes and then it's gone.
Right.
And I'm getting the itch again. Because I've been not itchy for 3 years, so in that amount of time I've been a pretty lazy guy and rested up and ready to go again.
I don't know, I get the feeling that maybe what you do is coming around again.
Perhaps. I hope. Because there are times one is ready or ripe, and then there's other times. I mean, it's funny. It's, you know, what is hip today can be passé tomorrow. Then it's hip again.
Right.
And suddenly, one day you're God's gift, and the next day you're a turd, and 6 years later, suddenly it's like, yeah, the greatest thing he's wonderful,
Right.
Beautiful, wonderful. And I don't know.
Right.
So I just keep on going, you know, whatever.
I mean, you have had a pretty wonderful career, though.
I have no complaints about that.
I mean, to be a real part of music history.
That and 50 cents will get you a cup of coffee almost anywhere. It will.
Is that how you look at it, really?
Yeah, honest. I swear to God. I joke with my students all the time about it. They say, but you're a legend. I say, yeah, how you doing?
Is it true the one who has all the money is the one who wins?
I don't know, money was never the most important thing for me. I was a hippie. That doesn't change.
Were you making money with the fudge? I mean,
I made a fortune.
Did you really, for a young kid? I mean,
oh yeah.
Going out and buying all the things.
Oh yeah.
Hot
I was
rod.
one of those folks that saved a lot.
Did you?
Oh yeah.
You were a...
Frugal background, with banking in our background here, folks.
Seriously?
Oh yeah. Whole family's banking back east. Some of the people actually own them.
Seriously?
No joke.
Yeah. So your parents had money then? You came from a...
No, the family does. My folks were just your regular average middle class people. But a lot of the people in my family, my dad had 13 brothers and sisters, and my mom had 5. Big old family. And most of them did pretty good.
And where are you from originally?
The New York City area. New York City first, and then Richfield, New Jersey, then Oceanside, Long Island. So the metropolitan area for the first 30 years.
Seriously, you lived there that long?
Yeah. I moved out on my birthday, my 30th birthday.
To L.A.?
Yeah.
Was it a shock?
It was a shock that I had to move, yeah. I don't think we can go into that on tape, Steve, because that really has to do with the mafia. And that's no joke, and that's not something I think I want to put in there.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay.
Turn that off for a second.
So you moved out to California,
Mm-hmm.
where you could ride your bikes year-round.
Mm-hmm. I took a year and a half off and went underground, literally.
Really?
Till my problem was straightened out. And that's when I met Steve Perry.
And what happened?
We had a group called Pieces. Journey found him around that period. The rest for him is history. They didn't need a bass player at the time. Again, I've had some very good luck. I've had some so-so luck. It's funny, Clive came down, and it was at that time. I had been running from my people in New York, and I think Clive might have been involved in some of that, because he came down and said, the kid can't sing. They didn't want to give us a deal, and his reason was the kid can't sing. I'll always remember that. Clive Davis said, this kid can't sing. I mean, I'll never forget that. It was at Sound City.
Really?
Yeah. My heart sank. My heart just sank.
And Clive was with CBS at the time?
I don't remember. I think it was he'd just gotten his new label or something.
Arista.
I don't remember, to be honest with you. Again, a lot of it's a blur, Steve. A lot of it's a blur.
Unbelievable.
Oh, you don't know the half of it. You really don't. Ha!
I mean, I gotta know. So Pieces,
just another one that wasn't meant to be somehow.
was it a good band?
I liked the hell out of it. Yes.
Who was playing guitar?
Denver Cross, who was a friend of Steve's, who had come down from the Central Valley with him, came to LA to make it. Steve did. Denver didn't.
And who was playing drums?
Eddie Taduri. Session fella at the time who was around town, played with a lot of folks.
Were you doing anything that Journey would later do? Did Steve have any?
We did Love and Touching' at the time.
Did you?
Yeah.
And nothing happened.
Our arrangements weren't as hard rock as theirs were. It was a little bit more country, because Steve at first had quite a country influence.
Is that right?
Yeah, he was a real Doobie Brothers freak. That and Sam Cooke. Tommy Johnson and Sam Cooke. I don't know if he'll own up to it now, but that's what we used to do.
Right. At a point, did you ever think of just joining another band, trying to get involved in a band that was already recording or had a deal?
Seemed like my reputation precedes me. Whatever that is, I'm still not quite sure what that is, because so much of it was fabricated that by rumor, I don't even know what's out there. A lot of it's true, but who knows? You know, who knows what they heard? He bites the heads off whippets, you know, spits them on the floor. Oh my God, we can't have him.
Yeah.
So, who knows, really?
I mean, it could have been a situation where having the same talent and creativity, but not having the name, you probably could have gotten any one of 1,000 gigs.
I have no way of knowing. I haven't a clue.
You've been doing studio stuff? Sessions?
No, there's a tight-knit group in town that does that, and that's a whole clique unto itself. That's a whole nother animal. I'm not known at all for that, so nobody would even think of me for it.
Would you like to do some of that stuff?
Oh, if somebody asked me, sure I would. I'll do anything. Again, you know, I've tried to become a, quote, professional musician, so I'll do whatever comes up. Be there 5 minutes early and be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed while I do it.
What do you do in the moments when you're not playing music?
Fooling with the motorcycles. I tend to hang alone a lot. I just hang home with the cats. I'm a professional bachelor. I have 3 cats. Anything over 1 cat, you're considered a professional bachelor. I have 3. I'm hopeless.
Have you never been married?
Oh, twice. That's why I live in a small place.
With 3 cats?
With 3 cats, yes. You know, they got the gold mine, I got the shaft. You know the song. Sure. If anyone's willing to do a hit on my first wife, she lives at... Oh, that's the only thing I'm still bitter about. No, just joking. You cunt! You will edit all this out, I hope.
Were you a young man when you first got married?
I know better now. I would do it again if the opportunity came up. I'm not anti-woman at all. I just don't happen to have a girlfriend right now. That's all. And I just, because of the way morality is shifted with age, I mean, one does not go out and mess around as much. Or at all. Sometimes.
That's right.
So.
That's right. Was the interest in cars and motorcycles a connection with Jeff? I mean,
oh, yeah. I was able to fix the carburetor on his Vet. I was okay. We went over to London to rehearse, and he had a problem with his 4-barrel, and I just happened to know the carburetor. And I said, no, try this, and then do that. And it worked. So initially I was fine, but that didn't last long.
After you'd fixed all his
cars. It tarnished quickly, yeah.
Right. What are your feelings about what's happening musically currently?
Well, some of it's nice. I don't listen a whole lot anymore.
You don't?
No.
I mean, are you aware
I'm a little jaded to it all. I mean, you can tell by the the lineage or the chronology of what's gone on here. It's, I don't have the enthusiasm I once had. No.
I mean, are you aware of what specifically bass players are doing, or?
Oh, the guy on level 42 is pretty good. I mean, that sort of thing. But, Billy Sheehan plays his butt off. I can't help but not hear, because I work in an environment with kids from 18 to 25, so they're going to know, and I'm going to hear about it, whether I listen to the radio or not.
Right.
So I'm informed about what's happening, but I'm not sure I care. It's not that I don't care, it's just that I'm not sure one way or the other. It's like, yeah, he's good, and okay.
Right. Answer me a question honestly.
Yeah, this has all been dead honest so far.
I know it has. I know the people that coming out of GIT have chops and they have technique. There's no question about that. However, you had mentioned earlier about you can teach someone the technique of singing, but you can't teach them a style.
Well, you can, but I know the point you're about to ask.
The point I'm trying to make or asking you is, does GIT produce 5,000 wonderful technicians and no stylists? And how many?
There are some styles taught down there. A school is like any other thing that you will get out of it what you put into it. So that you've got some kids that have come through and they were bright and motivated and talented and into what they were doing and intuitive enough to know where to get the information and bright enough to know how to put it together to make themselves look good. So that you've got people like Frank Gambale working for Chick Corea, and you've got Jennifer Batten working with Michael Jackson, etc., etc. But of course, out of a batch of 1,000 things, you're going to find 3 or 4 diamonds. You're going to have your lumps of coal, and you're going to find a couple of toads. And that curve, whatever that normal curve would be, I'm sure follows pretty much closely. You've got an encapsulated village here, of people from Japan through Eastern Europe. Again, some of them are bright, and most of them are average, and some of them are toads. And the bright ones will do well, like most bright people do.
Right.
And the toads will have a problem, as toads always do. So, for the average guy, he leaves with 10 times the knowledge he came in with, and can't hoit. It really can't hoit.
I just get the impression that, say, someone like you...
But it's not the Midas touch. I mean, it's not like they're going to walk through the door and make it. There's no guarantees anywhere, anyhow, for anything. I mean, they could drop the bomb tomorrow.
That's right. just seems to me that, say, someone like you, if you had gone through GIT in your early years, I think that it would have techniqued you right out of all the style that you developed by listening to records.
I honestly don't know. Because, again, you can develop a style from any place if you know how to do it. Or if you're intuitive enough to fall into it like I did. I just happened to, by one circumstance or another, get shoved into being enlightened over certain things. It's like, oh, is this what they're talking about? Oh, if I do this, people really like it. This works real good, doesn't it? You can pick that up either at school or in front of your tape deck, or some people get it better in a classroom and some people get it better by themselves. I guess it's how you learn to learn. And being an only child, I tended to learn on my own, just because I was on my own all the times.
Listening to records and things like that?
Yeah. Music was a big pal at one time, before it became my vocation. So that the last thing I'm going to do is go listen to music to get away from the problems that music has caused.
Right.
That's the reason I don't listen a lot anymore. Because when you're working, I mean, music is like 24 hours a day, so it can get a bit much. Anything gets a bit much after a while.
Yeah. Were you much of a student in school? I mean, was school a...
No, I was bored.
You were?
Yeah. That's been my great problem in life. There's very few places I can ever seem to fit where I can put the pedal all the way to the floor. That's where all this gad about humor comes from, because I'm only working in second gear, so what do I do with the rest of this energy? Well, we'll find the place for it, So that's where all the absurdity comes from. I was always a mischievous kid, too. I got in a lot of trouble for being mischievous.
You did?
Oh, terrible. Thrown out of school a couple of times.
Did you?
Oh, yeah.
What kinds of things did you do?
Oh, just a prankster. Just crazy stuff. Just hooking the Bunsen burners up to the water hoses, so in the midst of a demonstration you'd have the water hit the ceiling. That kind of foolishness.
Yeah. Did you go to college?
No, I had by that time been so turned off to the educational process that I could not wait to leave high school. In the classes where I had a teacher I was motivated, I got A's, and in the classes where I wasn't motivated and my sense of humor seemed to overtake all the rest of it, I failed. And there was no gray area. There's still very little gray area in my life. There never has been much. It's either real hot or real cold.
Was it hard to deal with such early success at all? Being so young, I mean, did it make you crazy?
It scared me to death.
It did?
It terrified me. Because I was a shy kid. Still am, but again, got the front down real good now. But as a kid, I didn't know how to pull any of that off, so that I tended to be a bit of a loner, and had one or two friends, and that was about it. So suddenly, when the whole world was my friend, I couldn't believe anything anymore, because I believed very little to begin with, and now nothing was real. Oh my God. Gave drugs a whole new meaning for me.
Yeah.
I can deal with the being alone part now. It's real easy.
Really?
Oh yeah. You get used to anything, like a limp. Again, what's normal? Got a great little story for you. There was this village, and one night the wicked witch poisoned the well, and everyone from the village drank of the well and all went crazy. And the next day the king came down, their beloved king, who they really admired, all dismayed. The king's gone mad. And that night the king drank of the well, and the next day the villagers saw the king and all rejoiced. He regained his sanity. What's normal?
Right. I know this is a question that you probably asked all the time, but had you not been a musician, where would the
I don't know,
energy have
because
vented
before
itself?
that, I was, again, in that transition period of deciding what I was going to be when I got a gold record. So I have no way of knowing. I mean, you can postulate until the cows come home, but that's just your ego talking, so who knows? I really haven't a clue.
Well, we talked a lot about the past. What's in the future?
A good manager. That's really as far as I can deal with it at the moment, because until I get that, there is no planning anything else. I'd like to do another record because I've got enough material, and I'm real strong about it, and I've become one hell of a lead singer over the last few years. I've been trained now. I'm real positive about what I'm doing with it. I want to make some more statements, but to be able to do that, you need a good management company, so that's the next step. And how one does that, I don't know. So we'll see.
Looking back at the career, what moments really stand out?
The night at Red Rocks with Jimi Hendrix. The night at the Saville Theater with The Who. The night at the Atlanta Pop Festival with the Cactus Band.
That was great.
The gig we did in Central Park with the Vanilla Fudge. The Crystal Palace with BBA. The NAMM show last year.
With Edward.
That was a 10.
Really?
Well, that whole show was. My band played before that, and we killed them. It was just one of those nights where I was on. It was a 10. I could probably come up with a few more given a moment to think, but those are the first ones that pop.
And what were the low moments?
Midlife with BBA. That's about it. Working for 7 or 8 years, it wasn't a moment, but working for 7 or 8 years trying to get a deal and just having things disintegrate in front of you continually. So that was a frustration. But again, that wasn't a moment. I haven't really had those kind of moments I can think of. Normally lows tend to come in month periods or 2-month spans or 3-month spans where everything is just awful.
Yeah.
But no real moments.
Are you happy?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Rock and roll takes a lot. Takes
Sometimes
a lot
more
from
than I'm willing to give. That's how come I'm not out there all the time. I also have a lazy streak a yard wide. It's a terrible thing. I worked so damn hard for 15 years. I didn't want to work that hard ever again. Although when the Fudge went out and toured 3 months, that was real hard work, but boy, I enjoyed the hell out of it when we did January, February, and March. That was great fun. Mark Stein and I were able to renew an old friendship, which was lovely. I'd not ever experienced that sensation before, where you had a friend 20 years ago you were really tight with, and you, again, time has buried all that crap that made the bad time occur, and we came back to do a thing, and it worked. And
it did work?
It worked good.
There was some magic there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Mark and I can still make people stand up. And Carmine and I are still as good a rhythm section as we ever were. And we had Paul Hansen on the bill, who is one of the instructors at school, and hell of a player. So it was an awful good band. Had a great time.
He was playing guitar?
Mm-hmm.
Vinny didn't tour?
No.
What was the record like? Mystery.
That turned out to be another political problem. We had Spencer Proffer, who is one of those divide and conquer people. And when he divided, it didn't conquer, it disintegrated. Although the album came out good, it's just the vibe that went down was not a good working environment. There was all these little games being played, and I loathe those little games. But there's so much of that done in the entertainment business. This little supremacy stuff that goes on leaves me flat.
Were you around when Beck played on the two songs?
No, they took the tape to England. And Spencer was being so pompous that he wouldn't give any cassettes out to anyone for any reason. I don't know. I suppose his reason is he didn't want anybody to hear it or just have it stolen, or I don't know whatever people think. But he wouldn't give one to Jeff, and Jeff's manager got so mad that he told Spencer you can't use his name on the album. So we had to put Jay Toad on it as opposed to Jeff Beck. I mean, that's the kind of pomposity that was going down. Which again just gets right up under my nose, and you know what an asshole I can be, given the right input. I mean, press my buttons, and I do turn into full biker. I don't condone violence, I understand it. So.
But the live gigs were happening.
Oh boy. Yep. It's too bad Mark doesn't want to continue. He has his own band he wants to do and feels he can't do two groups and keep his integrity intact. And I don't agree with him, but I have to respect his decision. So that's why we're not continuing it. It was successful.
It was, so that was...
We made coins. I have a bike sitting out front that tour paid for, etc., etc. We did well. But Mark seems to have enough money, and again, his career motivation is not the fudge, so I must respect that. I still call him up occasionally and say, "You want to make 10 grand a night, bub?" But he wasn't comfortable with it. So.
Was that the first time you'd, really spent any time with Carmine?
Yeah.
In a while? Are you still friends with Carmine?
Yeah. We talk.
Do you? Things have gotten a little
They
easier?
have, yeah, the tensions have relaxed, yeah. I did him a favor a couple of days ago, actually. They were doing some King Cobra recordings, and I happen to have an extremely high voice for a fella. And they wanted a full voice note that none of the guys in the band could hit, so Carmine called and said, would I please do that? And I said, sure, I'd love to. And so I went down to Sound City and spent a couple of hours.
Really?
Yeah, it was great fun. So we're back on speaking terms. You know, for a period of time, you know, we'd only call each other if we needed each other. It was that kind of
Right.
You know, we wouldn't be outwardly nasty, but there was no love lost. You know, it's really quite nice to see the man now as opposed to, oh, him.
Right. It must be a strange feeling after going through all that stuff with someone and...
Well, I'm sure that's part of what middle age is. You start tying up a lot of stuff that you left hanging when you were young because it just wasn't important to you then. There's a lot of things now that are important to me that weren't, and vice versa.
Yeah. All right. Terrific.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's always a pleasure. You keep